On November 24th, 1971, the day before Thanksgiving, a man in his 40s appeared at Portland International Airport in Oregon. He was dressed in a suit, tie, and a black trench coat, with brown shoes. In one hand, he carried a black briefcase, and in the other, a paper bag. He looked personable. He went to the Northwest Airlines counter and, with $20 in cash, bought a one-way ticket for Flight 305 to Seattle that afternoon. The name he used for registration was Dan Cooper. Portland is not far from Seattle, and the flight takes only 30 minutes. The aircraft was a Boeing 727-100, a popular short-distance model at the time. Its maximum passenger capacity was 131 people, and it was in use until 1984 when it was replaced by the Boeing 737. The gangway for the Boeing 727 was at the tail of the plane, not on the side like modern airliners. Airport security at the time was far less strict. There were basically no security checks, and you could even smoke on the plane. After boarding, Cooper sat in seat 18C in the tail, lit a cigarette, and asked for a glass of bourbon and soda. The plane took off on time at 2:50 p.m. from Portland. There were 36 passengers and 6 crew members on board. Shortly after takeoff, around 3 p.m., Cooper wrote a note and handed it to a flight attendant named Tina Mucklow. She thought he was trying to flirt, so she put the note in her pocket without opening it. Seeing this, Cooper leaned over and whispered, "Miss, you'd better take a look at the note. I have a bomb." The flight attendant thought it was a joke, but she opened the note anyway. It read, "Miss, I have a bomb in my briefcase. I want you to sit next to me. I'll show you." The flight attendant sat down next to Cooper, who then opened the briefcase. Inside, she saw a mess of wires and 8 red detonators. It looked like a real bomb. Cooper calmly told her, "Please tell the captain I need $200,000 in cash by 5 p.m., carried in a backpack. I also want 4 parachutes, 2 main ones and 2 reserves. When the plane lands in Seattle, a fuel truck is needed to refuel the aircraft on the ground. I'm not kidding. If my demands aren't met, I'll blow up the plane." The flight attendant, frightened, quickly reported the situation to Captain William Scott. The captain immediately contacted Air Traffic Control, which in turn urgently notified the relevant authorities. Donald Nyrop, president of Northwest Airlines, approved the ransom demand and instructed all employees to fully cooperate with the hijackers' requests to ensure the safety of the passengers. The captain then broadcast a message to the passengers, explaining that the aircraft was experiencing a minor mechanical failure and that their arrival in Seattle would be delayed. This kept the passengers calm and unaware of the true situation. The plane was then forced to fly over Puget Sound, where it circled for 2 hours to give the ground crew time to prepare. The FBI in Seattle gathered 10,000 $20 bills from multiple banks and recorded all of their serial numbers. At the hijackers' request, for parachutes and fuel trucks were prepared, waiting for the plane to land. At 5:39 p.m., the plane landed at Seattle-Tacoma International Airport. The weather in Seattle was bad, and it was raining. By this time, the passengers knew the plane had been hijacked, but no one dared to act recklessly because Cooper had a bomb. After landing, Cooper ordered the captain to taxi the plane to an empty apron and told the passengers to close all window shades to prevent snipers from shooting. Then, the hatch at the tail of the aircraft was opened, and the gangway was lowered. An operations manager at Northwest Airlines, to avoid being mistaken for a police officer, took off his uniform and changed into plain clothes. In the hatch at the tail of the aircraft, he delivered a backpack containing $200,000 in cash and 4 parachutes. In exchange, Cooper ordered all passengers to get off the plane, and he also let the flight attendant, Tina Mucklow, go, along with another flight attendant, Alice Hancock. Only 1 flight attendant and 3 pilots remained on board. At this point, a fuel truck drove over to refuel the plane. Cooper then gave the captain his flight plan. He asked the captain to fly in the direction of Mexico City, maintain a speed of 100 knots, keep the landing gear down, and not fly above 15 degrees in the cockpit. The captain told Cooper that they did not have enough fuel to make it to Mexico City. Cooper replied, "You don't have to worry about this. Just fly in that direction. We can refuel in Reno, Nevada." Cooper also wanted the captain to take advantage of the long takeoff and keep the tail hatch open, but the captain explained it was too dangerous. This time, Cooper relented. The captain noted that the hijacker had extensive knowledge of aviation and seemed to be an insider. With nothing more to say, they followed his instructions. At 7:40 p.m., as the rain grew heavier, the hijacked Boeing 727 took off again. There were 5 people on the plane: the captain, co-captain, engineer, flight attendant, and Cooper himself. There was a lingering question. If there were 5 people on the plane, why did Cooper only need 4 parachutes? The crew was terrified, as the bomb was still on the plane and no one knew what he was going to do. They could only follow the hijacker's requests. Meanwhile, the U.S. military dispatched 2 F-106 fighter jets and a T-33 trainer to follow the Boeing 727. The trainer, however, later returned due to a lack of fuel. After takeoff, Cooper told everyone to stay in the cockpit and not come out. A warning light on the dashboard in the cockpit lit up at 8 p.m., indicating that the hatch at the rear of the aircraft had been opened. A deafening sound of the engine and the wind could be heard from behind. The crew asked Cooper over the intercom if he needed help, and he replied, "No." This was the last anyone ever heard from him. The crew, afraid to ask again, waited for a long time. When they finally did and got no answer, they assumed he had skydived. At 10:15 p.m., the plane landed at Reno Airport. The frightened crew spent a long time in the cabin, but thankfully, everyone was safe and sound, and no one dared to come out. It turned out that Cooper's plan to fly to Mexico City was a diversion. Based on his knowledge of aviation and familiarity with the terrain, he had planned his escape route for a long time. A major hijacking case like this naturally attracted the attention of the news media, who came to the airport early to compete for the first report. One journalist mistakenly wrote the hijacker's name as D.B. Cooper. This mistake was reprinted by major news outlets, and the hijacker's name was permanently misreported as D.B. Cooper. The FBI launched an investigation immediately. They first interviewed the flight attendants who had the most contact with Cooper. Tina Mucklow recalled that he was personable, very polite, and told her to keep the change as a tip when he bought something. He was exceptionally calm throughout the ordeal and didn't act like a typical robber. The FBI then asked the 3 pilots who had been following the plane, and they all said they hadn't seen anyone jump out. When investigators entered the airliner, they found Cooper had left behind a black tie, a mother-of-pearl tie pin, and the 2 remaining parachutes. They also found 66 unidentified fingerprints, but no other clues. Based on the crew's testimony, the FBI speculated that Cooper's most likely skydive time was 13 minutes after opening the hatch, at 8:13 p.m. based on his skydive time and location. Investigators deduced that he was most likely to land in an area at the southernmost tip of Mount St. Helens. The FBI dispatched a helicopter and a large number of ground agents to search the area, even conducting door-to-door searches of local farmhouses, but nothing was found. The search continued for months. In March of the following year, the FBI sent another 200-person investigation team, made up of the Army, National Guard, and volunteers, to conduct a thorough 18-day search of the Clark and Cowlitz County lines. In April, another 18 days were added. During the search, a skeleton was found in an abandoned building, but it was later confirmed to be the remains of a teenage girl who had been kidnapped and murdered a few weeks earlier. The FBI's search was unprecedented and comprehensive, but it yielded no clues. FBI agents noted that while Cooper's actions throughout the hijacking were professional, his skydiving plan seemed amateurish. An experienced skydiver would never have attempted a jump in such bad weather. First, it was too dangerous. Second, the view would be obscured by dark clouds, making it impossible to judge his location. If he had an accomplice on the ground, it would have been difficult for him to land at the designated spot. Despite the vast resources the FBI poured into the case, he was never caught. However, in the decades after the incident, the FBI received some evidence. In 1978, 7 years after the hijacking, a sign marked 727 Rear Chord T was found near a logging highway in Washington state, located on the flight's original route. 2 years later, in 1980, a boy and his father were camping at a place called Tina Bar. The boy found a broken bag on the beach filled with $20 bills. Based on the serial numbers, the money was confirmed to be part of the $200,000 ransom. The FBI speculated that the money had fallen into the river during the skydive and floated to the beach. The FBI searched all the nearby beaches, but found nothing else. In January 2017, with the advancement of technology, the FBI found rare earth minerals like sulfide wire on the grains of Cooper's tie. In the 1970s, this element was very rare, but one company had access to it, Boeing. This suggested that Cooper may have been a former Boeing employee. Similarly, a civilian investigation team in the Pacific Northwest found some decades-old parachute belts that were considered potential evidence of D.B. Cooper. By August 2017, the team found a piece of foam in the same area, believed to be part of Cooper's parachute backpack. The FBI considered this evidence. Over the decades, the FBI investigated more than 1,000 suspects, but never found him. 1 month after the incident, the FBI announced the serial numbers of the ransom bills and asked the public to report any sightings of the money. Even today, the serial numbers can still be found on relevant websites. However, in nearly 50 years, not a single bill has been used. On July 8, 2016, the FBI announced the suspension of the active investigation into the Cooper case, citing the need to concentrate survey resources and manpower on more urgent cases. To this day, the case remains unsolved, leaving people with a series of questions. Did he die during the skydive? Did he have accomplices? How did he escape? Is he still alive? Unfortunately, these questions may never be answered. He became an unsolved case in the history of the FBI, and everyone remembers the notorious name D.B. Cooper.